Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Alejandro Perez, the CGI Nerd, and in this video we're going to be going over how to create rigid body simulations using these Lego blocks. If you're interested in finding out how to build these Lego blocks, I have a free tutorial on my website, cginerd.com, where you can learn the process that I use to build a procedural asset inside of Houdini that lets you build any size Lego block. Other than that, let's get started. Okay, so I have this block object that we're going to work with for this simulation. And if I go in here, I have some settings. Just to start off with, what I'm going to do is we have these pegs on the bottom. I'm going to turn them off to make it a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to turn off the text. I can turn them on at some point in the future if I needed them, but that gives me the ability to make the scene quite a bit faster. I'll keep the block height there, and then we can increase this to be much bigger, and I want this to be kind of like the ground surface that it is colliding into. So you'll see that this is probably going to be too small. Let's bump this up, let's say 50, and that's going to take a second to calculate because it's doing all of this whole process over here that we have on the network over and over again in order to get that. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I'm wondering if I want to do it wider. Let's try like 20. That should be enough. So it's going to be basically twice as long as it just took to get that width going. Yeah, that looks wide enough. And then let me copy this. It's going to make a second one. I probably should have done this first because I have basically I'm going to get double the geometry there, but that is okay because I can pretty quickly just go into this new block, and let's bring this down. We'll make it a 1x1 to start off with, and then we can adjust the size later. Okay, so these are going to be our rigid body blocks. Okay, and then let's go in here and we will add a transform at the end. And basically I want to rotate it over here. So let's make it like 45 degrees. Maybe that's too steep. I just want something where the blocks will fall pretty easily. Okay, and then I can set up a camera angle that I kind of like. And actually I do have a camera, so let's view through that camera. I'll lock it into place, and then let's zoom out. You can see where we are now. I could do something kind of like this. Let's see, view. We can adjust the angle. Let's try maybe like a 24mm lens. Gives us a lot more of the surface. That looks pretty interesting. I like that. And then I'm gonna unlock that. I'm gonna make a copy of this one just because it's gonna be easier than copying this, and then I'm gonna make a background block over there. So this is gonna be our, let's say, sky block. Okay. And I'm gonna jump into it. Let's make it a blue color. Kind of want a sky blue color. I like that. And then let's start off making it maybe like 10 by 10. And then I will add a transform. So that way we can get it lined up where we need it. I'm going to make this 90 degrees. And then I want to keep this in the top left corner from our camera view. So let's go camera view. There we go. And then obviously it's going to need to be bigger. And let's move it a little bit further back. There we go. And then I need to move it a little bit more this way. And then let's go back to the block settings that I have here. Let's make it 25. That looks pretty good by 25. And we can see that we've missed a little bit of the edge there. So back on this transform, we can try to push this back over a little bit until we get it completely in the screen, and that looks good. Okay, so in the camera view, I have the scene kind of the way I want to set it up. If I want to, I can play around with it a little bit more and get it just kind of right. Maybe if I want something more like this, and then just go back and forth and really tweak the settings. And so we need a few more rows over here. And then, was that width? Maybe? Oops. It was width. I want 35. And then that'll take a moment, but that covers enough. Okay, I'm gonna unlock my camera view from that viewport. There we go. We have this little setup for the blocks. Now I'm going to go to my block scene, or my rigid body box. That's the one I want. Okay, so here I want to basically take this block, and right now it is a 1 by 1. But we can make it whatever size we want. Let's say 4 by 4 or 2 by 2, whatever we need. Okay, so I want to get a whole bunch of copies of these, and I want to have some variation with these copies. So what I'm going to do is create a sphere. So this is where I'm going to basically start off all of the blocks. So I'm going to move it way up here, and then let's move it this way. And then it doesn't matter, but let's make it polygon. And then the radius. And then let's move it in the Z. Kind of like that. So I'm just creating a volume where I can create all of these blocks. Bring it a little bit higher. There we go. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to change it into volume using a ISO offset. So if we look at that, that's what we got going on there. Then we can scatter points inside of this. And I'm going to start off with like 100 blocks. So if we look at it over here, we have 100 different points. And then let's do a copy stamp tool. So the copy stamp tool has two inputs. One is the primitives to copy, and the other one is points or template to copy to. So the template's going to go to the points, and then the geometry or primitive is going to go to those blocks. So you can see we have all these blocks now. I'm looking at this. We have one block that is a little bit high. So let's go over to the sphere and just raise it a little bit more. Just so that way when we are looking at all these blocks here, none of them are going through the plane. And I think all of them will stay on the blocks, but we will test that out. Okay, let's save this really quick. Rigid body, so that way we don't lose any work. And then I'm going to go back to the object level, and let's look at the process of making these dynamic. So I'm going to go to the rigid body, and I'm going to just use the fractured object because we have a whole bunch of objects here. I'm going to keep it packed. And then let's push play and see what happens. So right now they fall and they keep on falling down to infinity. They don't hit anything in our scene, which is what we would expect because we've only made this dynamic. We haven't made any other surfaces that we want it to interact with. So the block here for the ground plane that we are looking at, I want to make that a static object that will allow the blocks to collide to it. So let's see what happens now. So you can see that it does collide with it. That's pretty great. And let's go to the camera view and see how it looks like there. There we go. So that looks pretty good. I like it. Okay, and then I can jump out now. So I have the blocks being dynamic, and I mean, it takes a little bit of time. Some of them are going through the back wall. So let's take the sky block and make that a static object as well. And there we go. So now we have blocks and they'll collide into the sky and things like that. And I mean, normally you wouldn't want it to collide with the sky, but this is obviously a Lego block or a building block that is being placed there. So let's look at the camera, and we don't want it to see it go through the geometry. Okay. From this camera view, that looks really great. Now, let's add some randomization to all of this. So when we look at it right now, we have all these orange blocks. Let's say we wanted to create a whole bunch of different block colors. So let's go into the rigid body blocks because that's what I want to customize. And I am going to look at the block color here. Let me see if I just put it at 0.9 instead of 0.94, if that's close enough. Yeah, just so that way I have a close number to work with. I'm going to also bring this down here so that way I can zoom in, because I'm going to be working with this copy stamp tool. So we have this stamp option. You can tell it that we want to do stamp inputs. And then let's say we rand color R. So if we look over here, we have 3 different values. It's going to be R, G, and B. So that is what we have going on here. And then, so R, G, and B. So the first color is R, the second color is G, and then the last color is B, red, blue, or green and blue. Then I'm going to do rand color green and rand color blue. Okay. Then inside of these values, what I want to do is create a stamp. And then if I open parentheses, it gives us an idea of what we want. So the first string is going to be the name of the node, I believe. So let's see. Over here, yep, node, then the attribute, and then the default value. So this node is copy 5 in my case, but you'll want to make sure that you have that // copy 5. So whatever object, whatever copy stamp you're using to change that value, you're going to make sure that you have that there. So then we go to comma and then sides, which is going to be the name of stamp. So it's going to be rand color R. You can open up quotes, paste that there, and then comma, and the default value, which I had it at 1. Okay. So let's go here. We can see that it gives us a value right now, random, or it's not giving us a random value. It's just giving us a value of 1 there. If we were to change this, and you can see that it's orange, so it's giving us that color. Now, over here, we can give it a expression. So we can say rand, and then for value, do $, PT, which PT is the point number. So whatever point number we are connecting it to. So here you can see that we have a variety of blocks that are randomized from from 0 to 1 in the color, and that works well because that value is a value from 0 to 1. I'm going to go to the blocks here. I'm just going to copy all of this and then paste this here, and then it's going to be 0.09. And then this is going to be G. And then paste it in the last one. This is going to be for blue. And we're going to make this 0 by default. So soon we should see some randomization, hopefully. Oh, because we need to randomize these values here. So there, now we have some random values, and then now we have some random values. So because we're using the same value, we're using just the point number, it's going to be grayscale. So let's take this and multiply it by some sort of number, 50, and then we should see a change. There we go. And then times 0.5. And then that gives us a whole bunch of different color randomly generated blocks. Times 3. And then as you change these, you can do it. If you wanted to limit the range so that you can get a specific color, you can by doing a fit range. So we can say fit 0, 1. So we're giving a value from 0 to 1 in the first one. And then we say the low end number. So let's say for the red channel, we want like 0.7. And then the high end, 1. So then it's going to take these random values and put it in within that range. Then I can try here, fit 0, 1. Put that randomization as the first value, then maybe the low value is going to be 0. And then the high value will be 0.2. And then I need to make sure that I close the parentheses because that's why it freaked out right now. So we can see now we kind of have it in a closer range. And then over here, I'll do the same thing. Fit 0, 1. And then comma 0, comma 0.1. There we go. And I kind of have all these orangey color blocks. And then just so that I can update this, you can see that the sphere is a little bit wide. So it's going out of the range of the block where we want everything to kind of happen. So let's put this maybe like 6 type of value and see. That works a lot better. And then let's pick this 26. So that way there's not as much close to the edge there. So that looks a lot better. And then let's look at through the camera and play it through again. So now we're going to see different color blocks. Oh, the reason it's not playing is that we need to make sure that we are all the way down at the dot import. So we need to make sure that it reads through all of these nodes, goes down to the dot import, and then plays it through. We have that. Should basically be the same. Let's go back to the first frame. It's calculating. I am not sure what happened there. So if you have an issue with your rigid bodies, which sometimes does happen, and it's an easy enough fix, what I'm going to do is basically delete, instead of the rigid body, anything that was past this copy stamp, because that's when I added the rigid body. I'm going to go to the auto.network. Let's push L and we can see what's going down there. I'm going to go to frame 1. And then we have this section here that is the rigid body blocks all the way through the rigid body solver. Delete that. Okay, that way we keep the static solvers for the background and the ground. Now I can select this and let's try to make this rigid again. There we go. And we have the kind of color range with some randomization of the colored blocks that we want. And the animation should look the same in the viewport here as it did before, because it's, or except that we made it narrower. So that's the only difference. But it gives us all of these blocks going through the screen. Okay, so I'm going to play around with some of the settings now. And oh, wait, I want to, yeah, the main setting that I want to use, because right now all the blocks are just a 2x2. So we can use that same copy stamp method that we used before here. And let's say rand x and rand y, and do rand, or with the lowercase, rand $, pt, and I'm going to do a fit range here. So fit 0, 1, take that random value and then put it between 1 and 4. I think I like those values. And then let's copy this, paste it down here. And let's multiply this by another value. 52. It doesn't have to be that, but just any number. Okay. So then with the blocks here, I'm basically going to copy this here, and instead of that value, I'm going to put rand x. And then over here, rand y. Let's double check. We have rand x and rand y. Okay. And then over here, let's go over here, and we can see that we have a whole bunch of different size blocks now. So it's not all just the 4x4 blocks that we had. So let's go ahead and go to the camera view again. And I'm going to play it through. So we have a whole bunch of different sized blocks now and different color blocks. So it gives us a whole bunch of cool randomization that we have. And I really like that. Right now we've already added the kind of color range right here. We can see that I had one in 0.09 for that kind of orange color. When I randomize it, let's put it like closer to that orange color, I guess. 0.09. Let's double that to like 0.18. And then maybe give the bigger range here so that we go up to like 0.5. And let's go look at the colors. So I'm getting a lot more pinks there. 0.01. Okay, I like that. It goes with my theme with CGI Nerd. It's kind of like orangey colors. Then this block, let's adjust this. Just put it at 9. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the camera again and let's play this. I have a whole bunch of cool looking blocks now. Now I'm going to save this, make sure that I don't lose anything, because now what I want to do is turn on the lower pegs and the text. It'll take some time to calculate all of this, and especially with the text. And then once it finishes calculating that, I can play it through. It should still be okay. You can see it's how long it's taking for each one. So there's 100 of them total. It's on number 6. So this is going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to pause and basically get this set up, and I'll turn on the CGI Nerd on the background here and the foreground here, and I will set up a render so that you guys can see the final results. All right, give me a moment. Okay, so I got all of the blocks with the CGI Nerd on them. So there's the sky, there's the ground, and then all of these individual blocks here. And so all of that is on. What I've noticed now is that it's super slow to calculate the collisions, and I don't want to have to do it over and over again. So what I'm going to do is cache everything out. So if we go to the Autodop network, here, hopefully it didn't crash on me. I'm not sure what it's trying to calculate. There we go. So here in the out, we can read everything, but what I'm going to do is basically do create a file down here. And then I am going to go, I have a big drive. Let's see. I think it's my drive. I'm going to double check it. I have it over here. So let's go to my computer. So it's the F drive. Yep, that's where I'm at. It's basically a, actually that's a small drive. It is 100 gigs, but hopefully that'll be enough. I can always do it on the C drive where I have a lot more, but it's an SSD drive on the F. So I'm gonna connect it there, and I'm gonna create a new folder, cache, accept, and then in the file name, I'm gonna keep this right here. And then let's go back to that folder that I have in the cache. So what the cache is basically doing is going to save out the frames, so that way it doesn't have to calculate it over and over again. I'm going to accept. And then right now, I'm going to do write. Then here on this, we can turn on looping, or we can do play once. So I'm going to just tell it to play once, so that way it doesn't loop once it gets all the way to the end. I'm going to turn on my flag on here, and we're going to write out all the files, and then I'm basically going to connect it to the output. So let me pause the video. I'm going to run this write files, and then I'll show you how I connect it to the output. Oh, in order to run it, basically I just push play. So now I'm going to wait until it goes through the whole pipeline, and you can see how much slower it is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll connect it for you guys. Okay, so the sequence finished rendering. I didn't have anything on that drive. Let me show you my drive now. We can see that we have like 20 gigs, basically. 27.7 gigs that it took up. So it does take quite a bit of space for the cache. So just in case. Now what I'm going to do is switch it from write files to read files. I am going to, now that that is done, push Y on the keyboard, drag it across to disconnect. Then I'm going to bring this up here and connect the output of that file into the output node here, and then turn the display flag on here. So now I should be able to go back to frame 1. It could still be slow, but it's not going to be like as slow as reading the, or caching everything out every time it will be. So now I'm going to switch over to the camera that I have rendered so that I can take a look at it hopefully a little bit better. Looks like my computer's starting to try to catch up. There we go, camera 1. Okay, and then I'm going to put this real time to see if I can get it in real time, and then we'll play. So it's not calculating out every single frame. It's not going through the process of calculating everything frame by frame, and it's going faster than it was earlier. But there's a lot of data in each frame, so it does take some time to load up. Let's go and move the camera up to where we can see everything. And we can see that we should be able to jump to the frames, and it'll take a second for it to load, but we should be able to jump up to any frame now. So I can jump to like 169, and it's not gonna need to actually like calculate everything. You can see how fast it's going through the frames. It's just loading everything into the I'm cooking it from the cache that we have over here, so that way hopefully it could play it through. But it will at least jump to that one because it's loading the file directly from there. It took me, I don't know, like it feels like at least an hour to calculate everything out. So let me give it a second to get to this frame, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so while doing that, the Houdini crashed, so I'm going to reopen up the file and try to get it to that point. But that's something to worry about when you're working with these big files, is running out of memory. It got like almost to the point where I needed to, so I'm going to try it again. This is the end result that I got. I had to make some slight adjustments to the model. I had the CGI Nerd on all of these blocks, and in the render, I just ran out of memory to be able to render everything. So I took that off. In the future, what I'm going to do is create a displacement map for that, so that way I don't have to have that part of the scene that it's building out, and hopefully that will work. But this is the simulation with the blocks as is, without the logo on there. Yeah. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And also, if you want access to this file where you can break apart all the nodes and see how everything works, check it out at my Patreon channel, and that should be coming up right now. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.